presence. Like I
Hmm.
said, it demands your presence. You're not off there thinking about what you have to do before work, after work, laundry. What am I buying this person for their anniversary? You're worried about you here and now. And I think that really gives you that rejuvenated feeling and it makes people happy. Like they've just taken an hour and they haven't thought about any worry in their life. They've only worried about themselves and what they can control. And wow, if we could all do that all the time,
Yeah.
how much better off would we be, right?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever and wherever you are watching or listening. This is the Holistic Monitor, and I'm your host, Nick Sconia. The Holistic Monitor is a wellness podcast featuring life energy research, health and wellness transformation, self-improvement and empowerment, philosophy, spirituality, and now guest interviews as well. We look forward to your comments on our YouTube channel at Holistic Monitor, and you can also listen on the go with us at Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and more. And with that, let's get today's show started. Kami Kiritsis, you are a very active yoga instructor and the owner of Aqua Om Paddle Company.
Correct.
That sound good?
That sounds good.
We're long-term friends, long ago, and one thing that I love what I see what you're doing and that you're an inspiration for is your drive and determination to make a successful business. And I feel like you're doing that in such a great way because you're helping people become more active and to be more limber and more aware of their bodies and to get outside, which I just love.
Yeah, that's the whole tagline, the get out, get active, get fluid. And that can mean very many things to different people, but that's the idea. Just get out of the house, out of your head, out of the situation you're in that you don't dig,
Yeah.
get active some way, and then just kind of learn to go with the flow because resistance is futile, right?
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I find that I've taken some paddleboard. Did I take a lesson? I'm not sure if I took a
You
lesson.
actually took one of my most memorable meditations. It
Oh,
was
okay.
the first year in business, and we did a floating meditation, and I was so happy because, like, it's like pulling teeth to get people to your classes in the beginning. So I
Yeah.
think I had like 5 6 people, and I was totally stoked. And then it started to rain, and I'm like, why? But we got out there, and it was just the most delicate of rains, and it was
Yeah.
almost like a cleansing for me. I mean, that this is my perception,
Right. Yeah.
and I just thought, like you can't plan the weather, you can't control it. And this really worked out the way. And I have thought back to that meditation so many times, but you were definitely part of that.
Yeah. I kind of remember the rain. Yeah. I mean, it's not something about meditating near water. You really raise the bar by meditating on the water in the middle of a lake. I think that's
Oh, yeah.
just awesome. Yeah.
Like complete immersion in nature.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the movement, there's movement of the water. There's really an absorption of the environment when you're floating. You know, it's a really good space to be able to really zone out, really meditate into the moment. And I think I paddled a lot too with that at that same time. I tried to get to some far branch of the lake or something like that.
I think you
Um,
were trying to get to the cliffs, and I was
yeah.
like, that's an aggressive goal. It's a little far from here.
It's like 2.5 hours away, but yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's always the goal. See how
But
far
you're
we can
right
get.
that being by the water, being on the water is a really nice way to meditate. And I think it's great for beginners. And that's why I continue to offer it year after year because sometimes that initial concept of meditation to someone who's never done it, it's very scary. It has this like, I can't think, I have to stay still, and it makes people really nervous to try it. Like, I could never do that. And I think, getting onto the water and just that natural rhythm, you really kind of tap into just the flow of the universe, the flow of the water, and it naturally takes over. You would have to fight it to not become more at ease.
Right. Yeah, exactly. There's almost an effortlessness to getting to that space on the water. Are you so you're actively going to be doing your new season here coming up, right? This is near the beginning.
This is the beginning. I have not had, even though I have been on the water since I've been back in Pennsylvania, I have not officially had an event because the water's still a little too cold for beginners. Um,
Hmm.
for people who are more experienced, who probably won't fall off. And if they do, they know how to recover and get back on the board quickly.
Right.
But I think the water temperature is still under 60.
Oh,
So it's,
okay.
not something I'd want to take a beginner out in. Official opening day is the 26th of this month, though. So,
Okay.
very excited, have some awesome classes and just things that I'm really jazzed about offering and looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what exactly do you offer, and give us a play-by-play as far as what somebody could find on your website to book and experience.
So, what we offer is, number one, just rental. So, you don't have a board, you've been paddleboarding before, you took a lesson before, or maybe you just want to wing it. You can come out and rent a board for 1 to 3 hours and just kind of wherever you want to go, you have the freedom of the whole entire lake.
Hmm.
And then, I do give lessons, which I highly recommend. I'm real big on safety. So, I do give lessons. And then, when you get into the classes, it's the floating meditation that we had talked about, the SUP yoga, which is yoga on the paddle boards, a class that I have developed called Power Paddle. So it's almost like a hit training, but on the water. So you do intervals of, actively paddling for say 2 to 5 minutes and then stopping, and I will do some sort of exercise, whether it's planking or burpees on the board, lunges on the board. And if you're tired from that 2 to 5 minute paddle, then you can just be like, I'm going to sit here and drink my water and take a break. But then we get up again and we do it again. And that's pretty consistent for 50 minutes.
Wow.
And then at the end of it, it's just kind of like float back to the launch point and relax. So that's a real fun class. I have a partner, Lisa Priebus, who owns a Pilates company locally, and she has been teaching for I think 3 or 4 years, offering Pilates on the water. So she's back again. That's a great class. It always fills. People love it. She's an amazing teacher. And then, I have a lot of kids offerings, and each year it kind of grows.
Hmm.
It started with just a little mini 3 day, half day camp where they can come out, they have fun, they learn the safety, we have relays, and then it kind of evolved into a weekly SUP league. So I actually have anywhere from 6 to 12 kids who come out every single week in the summer, and they train and they practice buoy turns and
Hmm.
relay races, and I time them. And, we do
Oh,
some other fun things to keep it fun and, not just training.
right.
But at the end of last year, I had 4 girls who actually entered a race
Wow.
in Wrightsville, about an hour and a half from here. So that was a really big deal for me and for them. And then at the end of the year last year, I tried a paddle and play class, and I'm going to be bringing that back. So it's primarily geared towards a mom with younger children, 3 years old to 7 years old, where they can't man their own board,
Hmm.
but the moms still want to get out. It's a nice way to introduce kids to paddleboarding, kind of cultivate that relationship with nature,
Hmm.
kind of encourage outdoor recreation. And we're going to continue that. That was a really cool class to just see. And I give the kids, little mini kid paddles. So once we get to a cove, they kind of take over and give it a shot. And some of them have then upgrade to trying out their own board, coming out with their parents alone and trying their own board. So it was nice to see the evolution from just sitting on mom's board to now they're on their own board and they're doing turns and they're managing it, and they've got the coordination. So it's very rewarding. The whole thing is very rewarding.
Yeah. And just for anybody in the audience that doesn't know what the board is, sort of like a surfboard.
Yeah, it looks like a surfboard, longer than a surfboard. Most paddle boards are start about 10 feet.
Hmm.
Mine are, most of them are 10.6. And, they can, race boards are skinnier, but your average board is 32, 33, 34 inches wide. I primarily use inflatables for a lot of my beginner classes, a lot of the aqua fitness, just because they're very forgiving.
Mhm.
They have a lot of float to them. Um, but I have 7 different kinds of boards in my fleet. So that's why I really encourage people, like, a lot of people say, like, I can't do this. I can barely have balance on land. And
Mhm.
it's like, no, this is a very different experience. Come out. I will have a board that will suit you, and we'll do this, however we have to. There's a million different ways, to go about it. And, I had someone last year who, I think he was 75 years old, and he
Hmm.
said his goal was to paddleboard on the ocean. He had kind of
Wow.
tried some things on his own and just wasn't real successful.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, we're going to work on this. And he probably took 5 or 6 private lessons from me, working towards that ocean paddling. It's a
Yeah.
very different type of paddle than flat water. So a lot of things I taught him were for the ocean. And at the end of the year, he bought his own board. And I think he texted me in January or February and said, I'm in Florida and I'm on my board. So
Wow.
that was
That's great.
amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's kind of what you want to see is the advancement and people getting active and really changing their lives, meeting goals, that sort of thing.
Well, I
You
mean,
really, oh, go ahead.
this was life changing for me. This
Yeah.
whole, just going paddleboarding for the first time just kind of was the catalyst to a whole different way of life.
Right.
So, and I think it definitely has that effect on other people. It really just changes a lot of aspects about their life. And it's very empowering. I think there's this thought that, like, oh, you have to be this gym rat, you have to be
Hmm.
super active, you have to work out all the time, maybe you have to be super fit or a certain type of body to be able to paddleboard. And that could not be further from the truth. You
Right.
can sit, you can stand, you can kneel. um, just get out there, no
Right.
matter how it is. Get out on the water.
Yeah. And let's dig into that a little bit. How did you get started with paddleboarding and get started with yoga?
So I was doing yoga before I was paddleboarding. And when I say doing yoga, I mean in like the exercise sense, not in the
Okay.
philosophy, not really
Hmm.
having any understanding of yoga in a whole, just exercises. And came up, I think, approached it with that Western no pain, no gain. The higher your leg is, the better you
Right.
are. And that was
Yeah.
fine. That served a purpose at its time. But then I had a huge shift in my life. And it was, a career shift in my life. It was a relationship shift. And I think it was really, I don't want to sound hokey, but I think it was the universe kind of being like, it's time. And I've been
Hmm.
nudging you and you haven't done it. So I'm just going to pull the carpet out from underneath you. And all that yoga and the way that I approached it was not helping me. I
Hmm.
had a lot of anxiety, just this, where am I? Where am I going? What am I doing? And something just said, like, I want to try paddleboarding. Like, Facebook probably showed it to me, or Instagram.
Right.
And because I saw the yoga on paddle boards, I was like, oh, that appealed to me.
Hmm.
And there was nowhere around here that you could go buy a quality board, be taught how to do it. So I went all the way to Exton, down to Marsh Creek.
Hmm.
And I did it. And that's not close. It's about an hour for me, hour and 10. And that, after that first time, I legit went to them, I think 5 days out of 7 that first
Wow.
week. Like, I was just like, it gave me this instant peace. I had all this stuff. They call it the monkey mind. I call it the beehive brain that was
Hmm.
just rattling around in my head. And, wasn't going anywhere with it. It was just noise. And then getting out in that water, it just demands presence. It demands it. If
Right.
you were not here right now on your board, you're in the water.
Yeah.
So
Right.
all those distractors just kind of stopped. And I was like, I need more of this. And the more that I did it, and I saw how positive it was for me, not just physically, but also emotionally, I was like, people need to do this, like people need this in their lives. And like I said, there was nowhere around here. So there you go. Just made
Yeah.
sense to kind of do it. And I found my Om, my peace,
Hmm.
my oneness on the water. So hence Aqua Om.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough to have a friend who was in a similar situation with me and loved paddleboarding. She had done it before. She also has a yoga background and is a certified teacher. So it was just like, yeah, let's kick this off. And, we kicked it off together. And she has since, I mean, she still teaches for the business, but she went on to pursue other things, which is awesome. But, she's still very much of it. And I'm very thankful because I don't think I would have been able to start this on
Right.
my own for sure.
Yeah. It helps to have somebody there with you to, take the leap. Uh, so it seems like that would have been quite a risk, though, as well, to make the cut from the career that you were in before to an outdoor activity company.
Everyone thought I was insane.
Yeah.
Like, you don't live in California, you don't live in Hawaii. There is three and a half nice months in Pennsylvania. How are you making a life from this?
Right.
And I hear it and I can be a very logical person, but there was just something that just said, do it. Like, no matter what obstacle I came up against,
Hmm.
um, I can definitely remember in my first year of business, it would be like, how long, much longer am I going to do this? When do I throw in the towel? And I'm pulling from my IRA and pulling from my IRA. But then, when I was ready to give up, something good would happen. It was like a sign, like, nope, don't throw in the towel, keep going. And I just kept going and it's continued to evolve. It's, very different from when I first started.
Yeah.
And I expect, I have plans this year to kind of change some things and I'm sure it'll continue to evolve. And
Right.
I'm here for it. I'm here for wherever it leads me.
Yeah. Well, I remember a lot. We got to hang out a lot during the pandemic, the early parts of the
Yes.
pandemic there, the brutal part. And what one thing that you did, which I would really love for you to bring back somehow, was the meditations that you were doing on Zoom or whatever, however you were doing it. I think it was maybe Facebook Live or something like that.
Yeah, the meditations. I think I was doing them on Sundays, right?
Something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a really great thing. And I'm sure there's people that do it, but it's like, oh, if Kami was doing it, it'd be great. Just to drop in and drop out, as it were.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, I've been following your journey. This year was a big year out west. It looked like you did a lot of discovery for new spots, new places, and potentially, is there a an offshoot that might happen?
There is, I this was my third time back and forth.
Hmm.
Third year, I should say, going all the way out to the West and coming back. And, the first year it was like an adventure.
Yeah.
And the second year was an adventure, but like looking around more, and now this year, like I actually did have some pop-ups.
Hmm.
I did teach some lessons in Arizona. And as I go and do these fun exploring things, whether it's hiking or paddleboarding, I'm now like, okay, I should start planning retreats. I
Yeah.
should be bringing people out here. And it was very evident last year and this year. I had two friends both years who were like, I want to come out and visit. And they came out and I was kind of their tour guide.
Yeah.
And, my one friend was like, other people would love to do this. So that's something that I'm kind of toying with right now is maybe, women out there who've always wanted to camp, but they don't have
Hmm.
camping gear and they don't know how to set up a tent and they don't know the first thing about starting a fire or cooking on a fire. Like, tell me what you want to do, we'll make it happen, or
Right.
going to all those cool places like Antelope Canyon,
Mm-hmm.
paddling through the canyon.
Yeah, yeah.
They're places that pictures do not do it justice.
Right.
You have to see it with your eyes, and experiencing it is life changing. It
Yeah.
absolutely is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something about the Southwest that just has an allure, a call to it that if somebody's only been in their pocket of the United States and it's not the Southwest, they really I feel like they just benefit just from seeing that that kind of place exists in the United States. We have that kind of beautiful environment and you know land, very accessible. Typically a day or two's drive for most people is just these absolutely beautiful canyons and getaways and just an amazing landscape. It really is.
It doesn't seem real.
Yeah.
I catch myself just picture, 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 because it's like I'm soaking it in, but I don't want to forget it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll look back and it's like, oh, you have 1,000 pictures of Gila National Forest. What are you doing
Yeah.
with that?
It's beautiful. It doesn't come out as good in the picture, does it? It
No,
really
but
doesn't.
that was based off of your recommendation, and
Yeah.
it was, I will say, probably in my top three things that I
Okay.
did in this journey. And it was very early on.
Right.
That's when I first went out that I did that. But it's what is New Mexico's like state tagline? Is it like Land of Enchantment
Land of
or
enchantment.
Enchanted
Yeah.
Lands or something?
Yeah.
And
All that.
I certainly
Yeah.
agree. It really is an
Yeah.
enchanted land.
Yeah. And when you're in the Gila National Forest, you're really removed from um, society, roads. You really get deep really quick. It's absolutely beautiful and tucked away. It's not
Tucked
easy.
away for sure.
You got to take a side road off the highways to get into there, but cool little town, Silver City. And yeah, it's definitely up there on the recommendations.
Well, I've
That's for
learned
sure.
in my travels, like if I know that I'm going to be near a national forest, I should probably just plan on staying there and like allowing myself to get lost. So I know before I go off into that beaten path, like, do I
Right.
have water? Do I have food? Do I have firewood? Like whatever I need, because you're not going to find that cool, perfect, camping spot and then be like, well, let me drive 2.5 hours back into town to get supplies.
Yeah. Yeah. That removed.
So I was very prepared when I went into Gila, and I ended up staying there for 3 days, and I didn't have signal, and I finally came out and there was 1 million messages. People were thinking that I was dead. you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No man's land. Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. And Arizona is one of those places that it's very oppressive in the summer. Very, very hot. Hard to exist, I would say. But it is the place to be in the winter, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I love Florida, but Arizona has this draw that's just, it has a very different climate, and you can really get out and explore, and it's temperate. It's probably a little chilly in the winter. I've been there with snow, but
I saw some snow up north.
yeah,
Like up in Flagstaff this year when I went all the way up through Page and, going through Flagstaff, there was snow on the ground. I
yeah.
was lucky enough to be kind of having a home base in Phoenix. So
Mm-hmm.
no snow there. It got chilly at night. It got like 45,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
Yeah, it was a brutal winter, I believe, in most of the East. And still in the Rockies, in the Colorado area, they're still getting snow. And it's May. So it's, it's one of
It's
those
it's
winters.
wild this year with weather everywhere. I mean, when I was out in California, they were having that whole atmospheric river
Yeah, right,
situation going on, and it was insane to see creeks that are normally dry,
right.
or waterfalls that are normally just like a leaky faucet that they're just trickling were now just rushing.
Yeah,
The waves were insane. Unfortunately, damage. There was damage
right.
to a bunch of piers, and a couple of the PCH closed in a couple of places due to mudslides. That
Mm-hmm.
happens. And then Tahoe with all the snow that they got was wild.
Yeah. Yeah, they got, I don't know, over 60 feet, I think, right?
I don't know how much they
That's a
got.
lot.
I just know I the week before I went up there, I think they got about 8 feet in that week.
Hmm.
And I got up there, the sun came out, the roads were passable.
Right.
I was hanging out with friends in an Airbnb. The snow on top of the roof had to be a good like 4 foot high. Like I
Wow.
had this fear of standing underneath the roof eave because I was just waiting for it to slide down and bury
Right.
me.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Um, and then I left and it snowed, I think, another like 3 feet the next day that I left. So timing was real good on my part. I
Yeah.
don't know about everybody else's.
Oh my. Yeah. We were just out in San Francisco in the Pacific Coastal Highway at the park at the Golden Gate. Southbound was closed, and we assumed it was from storms. You know,
Yep.
sand. It's a wild year for weather, that's for sure. Now, what kind of issues do you have with weather being on a lake?
It's wind is your number one.
Yeah.
That I tell everyone, a lot of people are like, well, what's the weather? Oh, it's 80 degrees, or oh, it's 75 degrees, time to go out. Weather, wind speed, and water temperature. That's what you
Hmm.
need to worry about. And I've had some disappointed people. I've sometimes had to cancel a class or cancel a lesson or a rental because it's going to be 15 miles per hour. And
Oh.
I can paddle in that. I don't want to paddle in that. And a beginner would not want to, paddle in that. And it just becomes unsafe. And,
Yeah.
I'm trying to teach a safety aspect to paddleboarding, along with providing like a really good experience that makes you want to do it again, and going out there and battling winds and getting pushed back as soon as you stop paddling, or fearing for your life, seeing the water white cap. Not a fantastic experience that many
No.
would want to do again.
Right. It's one of
So
those
that's
experiences.
yeah. So
uh,
that's the main thing. Rain happens, thunderstorms pop up. Thankfully, I'm blessed with radar, and it, for the most part, is pretty accurate. And I've just kind of learned you can't control it. You cannot.
yeah. Right.
I will have people on a Monday texting me about Saturday's class because rain's in the forecast. Well, is it canceled? I'm like, let you know an hour before class.
Right. Right.
Because
We'll see. Yeah.
you just can't depend on it, and I can't get stressed out about it anymore. My first year of business, it was constantly refreshing, and I'd be worried
Mm.
all day, all night, or 2 days in advance of,
Hmm.
please be sunny. And now I'm like, nah, whatever happens happens.
Yeah. And that's the time honored approach. Once you've done it a few times, you've been around the block with this kind of, issue. It's like, all right, I don't need to stress the small stuff because there'll be another day. It'll work
Yep.
out. I know for people with scheduling, that can be, it's their one day off or whatever, their long weekend that they have. Um, but it is the small stuff, if you can let it roll off, schedule another day, make it work. And I think people typically can. That's not like you know, so you're talking about a 4 hour window for somebody's schedule. So a little bit
I
of
mean, it's
wind here and
just
there.
one of the many lessons that I feel like nature teaches
Hmm.
us.
Yeah.
I could sit here and worry about it all week and be pissed off that it looks like rain, or have myself filled with anxiety because I have a full class and I don't want to cancel it, or I don't want to refund money. But whether I worry or not, it is what it's going to be.
Yeah.
So you wait until the time comes, and deal with it when it happens, if it happens.
Right. Right. Now, did your company do the pool yoga, or was it that Pilates? Was that the Pilates on the in the
It
pool?
was it was that was the pool yoga. You were right about that.
Okay.
This is going to be the third year that we're back at Antietam Pool, which is in Reading. And
Okay.
growing up in Pennsylvania, you would think that I would know about Antietam Pool. I had never been there until they contacted me and were like, "Hey, we hear you're doing this cool thing. Could you do it here?"
Yeah.
Amazing pool, really, really great staff to work with. And, I don't know where the people are coming from over there, but every time we have a class, it is full or almost full,
Hmm.
14 to 16 people on boards. We also have the flow motion fitness mats, which isn't your typical paddle board. It wouldn't be a board that you would paddle. It's more of a inflated yoga
Hmm.
mat.
Oh,
Uh,
interesting. Okay.
yeah, floats, same material it's made out of, same thickness, gives you a little bit more room to do
Hmm.
things on.
Right.
It's not
Right.
as skinny. So we'll put in a bunch of boards or a bunch of floating mats, and I stay on the side and we do yoga, and it's amazing. And I'm very thankful for the partnership. We're going to go be back again doing it this year. I think every other Monday we'll be there. So
Okay. Yeah, that's great. What kind of benefits are there in comparison? We're talking about, I guess, core development as well. What sort of benefits do people get out of doing yoga or activities in general, but yoga specifically on a paddleboard on the water?
so definitely your core, paddle boarding, whether you're just standing on it, you're actively paddling, you're doing some sort of exercise, it's all core centric. Yes,
Hmm.
other muscles are definitely involved, but primarily it is your core. And that helps your back, so
Yeah,
people
low
who
back.
have back pain, strengthening that core is only going to lessen the amount of back pain that you have.
Right.
That's number one. But there's, for people who say, I don't have balance on hard land, so I certainly can't balance on water, it's actually easier to
Hmm.
balance on water. And, I have had people that I've been teaching yoga to for years who would wiggle and fall out of poses and such on the ground, and they get on the water and they're like, I feel how I use my weight more,
Hmm. Hmm.
because it's very reactive. You start to learn, if you're in a certain pose, if this shoulder's dipped, that affects, your balance. So you
Right.
kind of learn all those little micro movements mean something, instead of just taking the floor and the ground for granted. You're creating the floor, you're creating that ground, you're in charge of it. So I
Yeah.
think that it definitely helps your balance a lot. Core, we talked about, and just that presence. Like I
Hmm.
said, it demands your presence. You're not off there thinking about what you have to do before work, after work, laundry. What am I buying this person for their anniversary? You're worried about you here and now. And I think that really gives you that rejuvenated feeling, and it makes people happy. Like they've just taken an hour and they haven't thought about any worry in their life. They've only worried about themselves and what they can control. And wow, if we could all do that all the time,
Yeah.
how much better off would we be, right?
No doubt. Yeah. Is there a philosophy that you practice, or some kind of spiritual discipline that you practice to help your clients along, or even yourself?
So I am a big follower of the Yoga Sutras. I know you've brought the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. You've,
Hmm.
brought them up on your show before, and
Yeah.
it is something that I reflect on often. I will try to pull certain lessons and classes. No, I will try to make classes from lessons
Hmm.
and from these threads that, we are given. And I think one of the most important ones is, I'm going to mess up the verbiage. I should have had it prepared. I knew it. But, basically, as the mind, as the person. So if you think that you are bound to something, then you are bound. And if you
Right.
think that you are liberated. So I try to encourage people to not be bound to a certain way of thinking. I have to look like this on the paddleboard. I have to look like this in the pose. This is the way Warrior Two is done, or it's not good.
Right.
Um, Give yourself that freedom, almost like a childlike playfulness. When we were kids and running around at playgrounds or playing games, board games with our friends, we didn't care who won, who lost. It was just the act of play.
Right. Right.
You didn't go down the sliding board the same way. You didn't go on the swings the same way every single time. You went on your stomach or you twisted yourself up and then let it unspin. You were finding new ways to do the same thing that you did all the time. And I
Right.
try to bring that into the yoga practices, try to make people aware of you've got this whole body with all these bones and muscles and ligaments and nerves, and you can play with that just using your breath and redirecting it into certain parts of your body can be a playful thing to bring into your practice.
Right. Yeah, mindset is a big thing of concentration. As your mind, so your words, so your deeds, that sort of thing. Um, we do tend towards limitation in our speech. When somebody asks us if we can do something and we haven't done it, we say, no, I can't. Not, no, I haven't, but no, I can't, which is usually that limitation, even if we don't know whether we can or not can or not. Uh, but we fall into that kind of space, that headspace where we limit ourselves within those spheres. That practice, I imagine, focuses on the construct of the thought being the place where these things are born, and then trying to stop that thought from becoming an active word or potentially a stopping from you doing something.
I
Is
think
that
one of
right?
the most common questions that I will get when someone is, thinking about taking a paddleboard yoga class for the first time is, um, will I fall? And I'm always like, you know, I
Yeah,
don't know if you
maybe.
will fall. That's up to you.
Right,
I have had people who they have never paddleboarded, they have never done yoga in their entire life, and they stay on the board the whole time. And then
right.
I have experienced paddleboarders and experienced yoga people who have had a practice for many years, and maybe they're taken a little bit further than they should, or maybe they're just testing those boundaries and they want to see where it is. So it all depends on kind of what is your intention when you go out there. And that's, something that I've been taught when I got my yoga certification is having a real intention of your practice, not necessarily a goal. Because if you don't reach that goal, then you feel defeat, disappointment, like you feel failure. But if it's the intention, the embodiment of it, n- no matter how far you got, you still work towards it. You still achieve that. So it's really kind of making that intention, whether it's focusing on yourself or keeping your practice slow, keeping your practice grounded, or maybe it's challenging. It really depends on the person and the day.
Yeah. So you see a lot of it. You're actually handling people's limited thoughts and words on a daily basis when you're working with people, because they're coming out maybe for the first time and going, "Oh, doubt and fear is basically where they're rolling. Maybe some excitement too. Yeah.
There's a lot of excitement. There's some ego.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
There's some ego in there. I mean, I can remember, you were talking about COVID, and before COVID happened, I did indoor pools in the wintertime. Like that was how, because I wasn't doing this crazy cross country traveling thing back then.
Right.
I was teaching 101, yoga classes a week, flying all over the place, and also doing paddle boards in pools. And I had someone who took yoga from me, and again, no one's good at yoga, but she knew a lot of poses. She was very flexible. She could do most of them, and it would look like the picture in the book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And she came out there, and she just threw herself right into poses, rather than being mindful of
Mm-hmm.
her her grounding. And she fell, and then
Right.
she got back up, and she fell, and she got back up, and she fell. And it was more that she fell more than anyone I've ever seen do it. And each time she was getting madder and madder and more
Mm.
frustrated, to the point that she was in tears. And I was like, you got to just relax, calm down, enjoy the experience. But she brought that ego there.
Mm,
She wanted to achieve something rather than have an intention of just enjoying it, enjoying how her
right.
body moves.
Get that, and I think that, if she was a specialist in her craft, and then changing the ground
Yeah.
basically to being a moving space, that can be very difficult if your muscle memory is based on the firmament, something very predictable. So I can see where that would happen.
Yeah.
You're taking somebody that's basically conventional and putting them into a an upheaval situation.
It's humbling. I
Yeah,
will say,
yeah.
whether it's paddleboard yoga or whatever, it's a very humbling experience. And a lot of it is mental
Right,
because, out on the paddleboard, every reaction that your body would typically take over, you have to do the opposite. So if we're on ground and we feel unsteady, usually we tighten up our legs, we stop, we look down, we put our hands up or out to the side, we freeze because we want to get our bearings.
right, right.
But on the water, you have to do the opposite. You have to bend your knees, keep that paddle in the water, continue moving, eyes up. So it's kind of, you really have to retrain your brain, which is fantastic.
Yeah,
Anytime we have to give our brain a little trivia or a new way to figure something out just keeps it healthier. So I love it, but it's hard the first couple of times you get out there because we want to fight that. And we just want to go to our natural instinct instead of accepting that maybe those instincts aren't applicable on the water.
yeah, yeah. I feel like there's almost a game when you're approaching paddleboarding, an activity on the board. Is that the goal is to get wet, but the game is not to fall. But the goal is to actually fall in. But
I
to play the game
love
right is to
falling
not
in.
fall in.
I
Like,
love falling in. I promote falling
yeah,
in. When I teach a SUP 101 class, which is like a beginner class, that is part of the class. Number one, there is a proper way to fall in
yeah,
flat water versus
mm,
surf, so I will teach that and the reasons and the logic behind it. But then also, when everyone is so worried about not falling, then you really don't grow, you
right,
know?
right.
So I try to like normalize that falling when we're paddling. I sometimes will say to my kids, if you're not falling, you're not trying, you
Yeah,
know,
right. I mean, that's
because you're
part of
going
it.
to fall if you want to do buoy turns and all of that. It's going to happen. But,
Yeah.
you got to get that first one over with and then the fear is gone, just like skiing. Like some people will say, like, they're so scared to fall skiing, but then after they did, they were like, yeah, wasn't that bad. Now I'm just going to go for it.
Yeah, exactly. And you're falling into water. Maybe on a hot
Exactly.
day. So, That's why you bring a bathing suit and it's all good. Is paddleboarding a recognized sport? Is there some form
So
of
it is a recognized sport. It's not in the Olympics yet,
okay.
but there is like a SUP World Cup and there's tons of races that are all over internationally. Um, I think that I've heard like within the next 2 to 4 years, it most likely will be in the
Hmm.
Olympics.
Wow. Okay.
Um,
How
but
about that?
yeah, it's just another aspect of it. And that's why I love it. It's paddleboarding is there for whatever you want it to be. You just want to go out, you just want to lay on your back and read a book or float with your friends and really not even paddle. That is totally fine. You want to sit, you want to kneel, you want to bring your dog out. Awesome. You want to do yoga and relax, or you want to do power paddle and get active and sweat, or work your way towards racing and making it a competitive sport. And now you've got the big inflatable wings that they have. So they'll
Hmm.
use the wings and the hydrofoils. Like it just
Oh,
continues
wow.
to grow. Yeah.
Okay.
So
I
I
don't know
feel like
anything
there's
about
no
that.
it's just wild how much the sport has changed and grown and continues to grow.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to look into all of that. Yeah, you have an alliance or a you work with a company that produces boards specifically. How did that relationship start?
So starting the business, it was like, okay, I need paddle boards. And since I'm a company, I don't want to go pay retail for them. So there was some calling around, and Melissa, who was my partner when I started this, she actually made the connection with Evolve Paddleboards, who is out of Ocean City and Maryland,
Maryland.
Ocean
Okay.
City West. And, there were other people that we had talked to, but with the other people, you were just a number. It was basically like, well, how many boards do you need? We're like, I don't know. We're starting out. We're in Pennsylvania. We don't even see paddle boards here.
Right,
Three,
right.
you know?
Yeah.
Um, and you were just a number to them.
Yeah.
Where when we talked to Evolve, first we made contact with Ron Gossard, who's the president of it, and he just amazing guy, was just like, yeah, whatever, like, you want to do 7, you want to do 8, and that's it the first year, like, yeah, totally cool. And then, as the business grew, I got to meet KJ, who runs their retail store and does a lot of those flow motion fitness mats that I was talking about. She
Hmm.
has them in certain colleges.
Okay.
And she has just been a huge impact in my business, just teaching me so much, from basic paddling, teaching me what I know about paddling, to how to run a paddleboard business, and sharing ideas of what worked for her in the past, what didn't work, other connections that she has, what are they doing.
Hmm.
And they were real genuine people. I wasn't a number. It wasn't about how much my order was that year. It was just like, am I happy? They stand behind their product. Anytime I've ever gone to them, like, this customer, they got this awesome wood board and there's this weird water stain that I've never seen. Like, what does that mean? Without even a question, they're like, have them use it the rest of the year. At the end of the year, bring it back. We'll give you a brand new one. No questions asked.
Wow. Yeah.
Something goes bad, a pump goes bad, or whatever. And they could be like, well, follow up with the warranty. And they could kind of push me off, but they're just like, yep, we'll take it. Here's a new one. Like,
Yeah.
they're very supportive. And what I love is, they are paddle boarders. Like Ron and
Right.
KJ, they have been in many races. Ron does the foil boarding.
Hmm.
In fact, I think it was like maybe a year or two ago when I went to pick up my order for the beginning of the year. He's holding his ribs, and I'm like, "Oh, are you okay?" He's like, "Yeah, I was just out on the foil. I think I cracked a rib, but all right, let's get your order." Just going on with things.
Yeah.
But I mean, he makes custom boards. He shapes them. He'll design the prototype. What he wants it to look at. Sometimes, we get to test it. One of their most popular boards, and I think it's probably like the sexiest looking board I've ever seen, is called the Freshie. It was new last year.
Oh, okay.
And I got to try that out before that like went into mass production. So that was really cool,
Yeah, that's neat.
So it's not just you're not just a number, it's not just a mass production type of deal. Yes, they are made overseas, once the prototype is done, but all his custom shop stuff he does right in Ocean City at
Hmm.
his shop.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. They're great boards. Great quality. Um, and great colors. All that, It's got the
They
nice.
are they are beautiful, and it was important to me, if I'm gonna put people on boards and I'm gonna rent them or give a class to them, I want it to be on really good equipment, because
Yeah.
it makes a huge difference. It really does. And again, there was just nowhere around here who was doing that. It was maybe something that you can go to Dick's Sporting Good and buy for $100 or $200, and that's fine. But that, I don't like the safety aspect of that, and just
Right.
it's not going to be a great experience. And I want people to come out and do this again and again.
Right. The buoyancy is different. The feel and the texture of the board itself, the
Yeah, the
grip.
construction of it,
Yeah.
the materials that are used. I mean, I can't speak to other paddleboard manufacturers, but I can say with Evolve, like, it's the same material that you would use for whitewater rafting. So think of those big rafts that are
Mm-hmm.
coming down a raging river and they're bouncing off of rocks. Like, I mean, you have to have some durable material for
Yeah.
that. And they do, I have boards that are 6 years old that are just holding up. And I've all the times that there has ever been a puncture, it has been my fault. It has never been a
Mm.
board failure. It's been like the wind catching it and me like hitting a metal sign, just of
Oh, right.
course, right on that corner where it slices it.
Yeah.
It's always been user error, never,
Right.
never product error.
Yeah. Well, now you have a bit of a community kind of building around the paddleboarding too. People that are coming back again and again, and people that just are buying the boards from you and going out and paddleboarding and having their experiences alongside of you as well on the lake, I assume. That seems like part of what it does. It just kind of creates this like paddleboard culture.
Yeah, that's the best part about it. And I think in maybe the past 2 years, I've seen that expand, and it obviously makes me feel good, when I have a sunset paddle and I will open it up to the whole community. I call them community sunset paddle and float.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a kayak, you have a canoe, you have your own paddle board, you come on out. There's no fee. You just hit the water. Maybe you want to decorate your board with some glow sticks or whatever and just meet some cool people. Obviously, I rent boards on those nights because, I want to make money as well,
Yeah.
Um, but there usually is more people with their own
Right.
boat, board, kayak
Yeah.
than there is renting them. And it's just really neat to see the connections that are made. I also give a discount to people if they use their own paddleboard for my classes. So if you come to
Mm.
a paddleboard yoga class, you don't have to use my board. You can use your own.
Right.
And last year, I think one of the classes, I had maybe 15 people in the class, and
Wow.
like 11 of them all had their own boards and they were all evolved boards. And I was
Wow.
like, ah, like,
That's
it made me
awesome.
feel good because I know they
Yeah.
got them for me.
That is amazing. Absolutely. Yeah,
And
I mean
it's
they're
nice to see people just getting out on their own now. Like I'll see it there's a paddleboarding group in the area, and I'll
okay.
see people who, have started paddleboarding with me or took a lesson with me, and now they have their own board, whether it's evolved or not, no hate there.
Yeah,
But
right.
they're like continuing to go out and they're getting their kids involved in it, and it's just like it's building this really cool community of water spirits.
Yeah, yeah. And you have a lot to do with that, I would imagine, being where you're at and your company to build, again, an outdoor, not fitness, but activity or adventure company in an area where you wouldn't think there would be something like that, but there is a lake there that that has a lot of, I don't know how many square feet it is, but it's a very odd shape, but
I
but
think
it is
it's
a
like
pretty big lake.
1,400 acres is the lake. Now I don't know
Okay.
what that means in length or width or anything like
Right.
that, but I think I remember that number from somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, there's not, well, and I guess if you were out west, you're kind of also limited on the lakes that have water in them if you're in the drought time period. Um, I don't know about this year, but
It
but
was that
yeah.
was interesting to see because out west, every lake that I have been to before was obviously more full this year,
Hmm.
except for one. And I haven't been able to get an answer from anyone. I mean, I didn't ask a ranger, and that probably would have been a good resource. But I'm like, I don't understand. There was all this water, there was all this snow melt. Why is this lake considerably lower than every other lake around here? And I know it is because I camped there last year. And
Yeah.
I remember my campsite was right on the water's edge. It was like my fire ring and maybe 20 feet in the water. And now I can see my campsite and it's a good like 150 feet
Hmm.
to
Wow.
the water's edge. And I'm like, is there a leak? What's
Wow.
going on? Maybe it's being rerouted,
Yeah.
for agricultural purposes, which happens a lot, out
Right.
west. I don't really know all the politics of it. It was weird to me.
Yeah. Water is the resource, especially in the desert. It's a pretty valuable resource at that, and yeah, exactly what happens. They move things around for irrigation, for possibly for golf courses. Who knows? But I think a lot of it's agricultural. California takes up a lot of water, being like a breadbasket,
Yep.
and they use a lot of water. But they got a lot of snow and a lot of water this year, so very green in the winter. Definitely California. Would
I've
you?
never seen it as green as I
Me
saw
neither.
it this year. That
Yeah.
was now I was not in California when they got the super bloom. I was already in Arizona, so I didn't get to see that. But I mean, seeing places that were traditionally like the very brown,
Yeah.
dead,
Right.
are just bright, bright gleam, like almost like I'm back on the East Coast, in
Yeah.
our spring. And it was wild to see. The desert was rich with
Mm.
bare blooms, which was really, really cool to see. Just it changed. I've been to Tonto National Forest so many times now and different parts of it. So now it's like I know what that looks like before, and it looks completely, and it
Yeah.
just changes. The landscape is always evolving.
Yeah.
And I love the contrast of the desert. You've got things that are coming to life, and then you like look over here and you'll see an older saguaro cactus starting to decay, and it's just that yin and yang, that
Right.
balance is so interesting to me.
Yeah. The process of life. Everything's at a different place, and it's all happening within like a few square feet. you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very unique environment for sure. It's again not like nothing you've seen. You think of the desert and you think dirt, and there's nothing. But it's not that kind of desert. It's very active, and I've mostly been there in the winter. Been there a few times in the summer, but mostly in the winter, and it's very feels very green, and I mean, it's different kind of green, but it's very active. There's a lot of animals and insects and lizards and all sorts of stuff moving around on the ground. The ground itself very colorful with different stones. So
Ugh.
it's a really cool thing to experience.
When I tell people that I go, I spend a good amount of the winter and spring in Arizona paddleboarding, and they're like, there what are out in the desert,
Yeah, right, right.
because I think there's this, like you said, this thought of like, oh, it's just mounds and mounds of sand and that's it, but it,
Right.
it is very rich with water and lakes. And this year I found just stumbled upon the neatest little nook that I've ever seen. And it was at Canyon Lake, which I've been to before, but the water was always a little bit lower. So there was
Mm,
a point back in this one canyon where you couldn't get back any further. Well, this year, with all of the rain that they had, I kept going and going, and I was like, "Oh, this is pretty cool." And then I start hearing this raging
mm,
water, and like when it's echoing off the canyons, it's much louder than it really actually is. And I'm like,
right.
"What is that? What is that water? Is this a flash flood?" And I'm kind of like looking around, nervous, and I just found this whole little creek that I've never seen before, and pulled off the board and just sat in these like tubs of water, and it was just rushing down, and it was so magical. And I took a couple people there who are Arizona natives who've been
Mm.
to Canyon Lake hundreds of times. And they're like, I've never seen this in my life. How do you know about this? I'm like, oh, I just stumbled upon it,
Yeah. Well.
But that's what I like, because it's just always changing.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is, and every year, and then seasonally, I mean, there's been a major drought for I don't know a decade or more, and that
Yeah.
really definitely gave it a different appearance. But I imagine going there in the winter, it's usually more wet. It's the rainy season if it rains. Um, but I can imagine with the kind of rain that's been happening in that part of the desert that it's got to be real vibrant and just new places to explore. I can imagine on the same old lake that everybody knows. Yeah,
Looking completely different.
yeah, yeah.
Well, and that
Now,
happening, California, going to Eaton Falls.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard from people like, oh, there's a little trickle of the falls. And I'm like, well, it says you have to cross this river. And they're like, it's a dry, creek. Like, you're lucky if your sneakers get wet. And I'm like, okay. Well, I went after all the flooding. And when I called the parks department to see if, it was safe to go, they're like, oh, it's about ankle deep water. I'm like, okay, no problem. Well, I'm like 3 miles into this hike and I have to do my first river crossing. And that's like almost to my knees, and I'm like,
Oh, wow.
okay. And then I'm another mile into it, and the next river crossing is to like mid thigh. And as
Oh,
I'm making my way back to the waterfall, it was hip deep,
oh,
and
oh
it
boy.
was just it was raging, but I was into it, and I was like, I can't turn around now, like
Wow.
so. I went for it and did it, and probably one of the coolest hikes I've ever done. I
Yeah.
don't know that I'd want to do it again because I,
Right.
I did I did get swept away a little bit. I kind
Oh,
of
I
bashed
bet.
my knee on a rock,
Oh, oh, that's
but
not good. Yeah, I think it's at the. I mean, it's above the ankle that you can get swept, but
yep,
knees are almost definite, and then hip. I can't imagine hip. You're just kind of you're swimming, basically.
yep. And I was carrying, lady, so I was
Yeah.
carrying her, trying to like barely even take my feet off the bottom of the riverbed,
Mm,
just kind of like sliding them, and I just
man.
hit a loose rock that I didn't have my stance on, and down I went.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's dangerous. Yeah,
Live
but
and learn, all
adventurous.
part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, river crossing when hiking it's quite a thing because it really whatever you go with, if you know that you're doing the river crossing, that's a big help. Otherwise, it's hoisting it above your head as you go across the water. It'd be
Yes.
dry on the other side, but that definitely makes it quite an awesome hike. Um, Getting to do it 3 times, I don't know, but yeah.
Thankful that I had the experience. Would I do it again if it was the same? Probably
Hmm.
not, but I'm very grateful for it.
Yeah, that's pretty dangerous. Yeah. And you
But
were by
I've had
yourself?
those dangerous moments out in the water too.
Yeah, right, right.
There's been times, especially when I was a newer paddleboarder, didn't take a lesson. So I was just like,
Hmm.
oh, I don't fall and I can move. I'm a paddleboarder. And not knowing anything about a float plan, or reading rivers, or that rivers do change and depth changes. And I
Right.
went up to Wrightsville where they have like all the bird migratory, and they have those two
Mm-hmm.
islands. And I think I ended up paddling about 10 miles that day because I didn't really read the river correctly. And I came back against
Wow.
20-mile-an-hour headwinds. And
Oof.
it was a very scary experience. And it started raining and I was hearing thundering. And I'm just like, I'm going to die out here,
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So that's what
Yeah.
kind of made me like, maybe I should learn what I'm doing.
A little prep on the water safety. Now, lightning is a factor, isn't it?
Lightning can be a factor, and that's why it's really important to check the weather, see what's coming in. Now, in springtime and even summer, you do have those pop up storms. So that's why it's important to kind of know where you're paddling, know that where you can get off if you have to get off the water,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
and also creating a float plan. Like, that is my goal this year, is to get more people to create a float plan
Mm.
before they go out. And for people who don't know what a float plan is, it's basically like the where, what, when of your paddling. So if I'm going out, if you're my float plan buddy, I'm going to say to you, I'm launching at this place. I plan on heading north, south, whichever direction. I think I'm going to be out for 1 hour, 3 hours. And then I would text you when I get back in. And
Right.
before I leave, you kind of just take a selfie of you and your
Mm.
board, and then that way you have a picture, you know what I'm
Right.
wearing. You would have a picture if you needed to give this to a Coast Guard or to a Ranger. Here's what she's wearing. Here's what her equipment looks like. This is
Yeah.
what direction she's going in. Here's what time she went out. So if there is a problem or you get into a situation, there's a better chance of you getting help than, oh, this person went out one point today. We don't know where, we don't know when, we don't know what they look like, we don't know what type of paddler they are.
Right, right.
So that's my like safety goal for this year. Last year it was to get people to look at wind speeds. This year it's
Hmm.
float plan.
A flow plan seems pretty involved, but I can see all the points as being very important to just to water safety in general. Is that for mostly if somebody's planning on doing a long type of paddle
I would say it's someone who's doing a long paddle or someone who's going out by themselves.
or by themselves? Okay.
You're
So,
going out with somebody else. Usually you have another person there who can kind of help through whatever you're going through. But if you're going out by yourself, no one knows that you're out there. No one
right.
knows where you're going, what you could encounter. And it's a good little safety tip. And people, I'm trying to get people to do it. And we have a mutual friend, Steph, who is really
Mm,
good about telling me that she goes out, but not telling me that she came back. So I'm always
right.
like, are you back yet? She's like, oh, I'm sorry, I've been home for 2 hours. I'm
Yeah,
like, okay.
yeah. Well, that's immediately what I thought was, I can see myself doing that and just completely spacing out on the back end, being like, "Oh, okay, I'm back. No need to be alarmed. I made it," but not
Right.
actually following through with the with the finish. Yeah. That you could set an alarm on your phone or something like that, just to, remind you at the 2 hour mark or something like that to message.
The beauty of technology,
Yeah,
right? It's
right.
it, it's helpful and it can also be a hindrance.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess on the water technology could be kind of tricky because if you fall in, you might ruin your phone or your camera or whatnot. Is that
Yeah,
does that happen?
I have had plenty of customers who have dropped their phones and they sink like an anchor. So there's no getting them back once they drop in. Now
Yeah.
they, of course, they sell all this cool gear, floatable, water resistant bags for your phones that you can put around your neck with a lanyard. And I'm very torn because I think it's great to have that communication tool with you on the water if something does happen.
Right.
um but then also I see people kind of get sucked back into the scrolling. They find a little cove, they take a little break. Oh, let me
Right.
see if anyone has texted me. Oh, I have a Facebook notification. Scroll, scroll, scroll. So
Yeah. Yeah.
good and bad. I mean, I struggle with that because when I go out for enjoyment with friends or by myself, I want to be in the moment. But then being a person who owns a paddleboarding business, you're always like, I need new footage, I need new videos, I need new pictures. So
Yeah.
it's
Right.
trying to find that balance. I for that reason have not gotten a GoPro yet. Like I want to
Mm.
get one. And a paddleboarding friend of mine, Mary Beth, she does really, really cool videos. She's up in Canada and she even has an attachment for her paddle. So it's not like
Mm.
she's holding it, but it's always recording.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know that I want to be that on.
That
I,
engaged.
I guess
Right.
that's why I don't do great with TikTok or Instagram. I'm like the uninfluencer, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, I mean, you're getting a lot of value out of being on the water, and in doing that, you're checking out. I think it's just such a shame that the addiction to the phone, to technology, to social media is so strong that we can't turn it off for an hour
Yeah.
without either rushing back to it or getting drawn into it within the hour. Within an hour, you can't even take a break. You know, it's a crazy thing that's happened within a very short amount of time, and barely anybody really notices unless they're being ignored by somebody on their phone. But it just has blown over. It's just this necessity for business. It's a necessity for self-esteem for a lot of people,
Yeah.
for connection for those with distant family members. But the self-esteem factor, I think, is a big one. Just the likes to get that affirmation that they did something good or whatever it is. And then it's 20 minutes later, doom scrolled away half the hour, and oh, I'm on the water. I could be enjoying nature, enjoying the birds, enjoying the trees, enjoying the water, the moment. But I'm sure you see it a lot. It's just everywhere, and it's just one of those things like that would maybe be something that you'd leave in the car just for that moment. But then you can't get pictures.
Well, and for, and I know that because, the
Yeah.
grammar, it didn't happen, right?
Right.
So people are coming out and they're doing paddleboard yoga, and I will ask everyone to put it on do not disturb. Like, I don't even want the vibrating, because you
Yeah.
can hear it, everyone can hear it, and you're on the
Right.
water on an inflatable board, so you can feel it.
Right.
So
Right.
I do ask people, if they are going to bring their phone, please put it on do not disturb. And then after the class, I will say, like, who wants a picture on their board? Like, you want to try a pose that you didn't want to try during class, and try to bring it in that way. And I think
Yeah.
it's just like anything else, finding that healthy balance.
Mm-hmm.
I try to supplement my paddleboarding with a yoga practice, with hiking, because I can't go paddleboarding every single day. I will blow my shoulders out,
Right. Right.
Um, you can't do a super, super heavy duty power yoga every single day. You can't go hike 10 miles every single day, because
Right.
eventually, too much of something is going to eventually be bad. So just finding that balance.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, are you trying to work like hiking adventures into your company?
I am. I'm trying to do, in my off season. I don't want to be completely booked,
Yeah.
but I would like to maybe once or twice a month have either a retreat where it's a small group, or maybe it's an individual person doing travel adventure.
Yeah.
So, you want to go to Arizona, and maybe there is specific things that you want to see. I want to see Antelope Canyon. I want to go to Page, Arizona. I want to see Canyon Lake. Like, great, we can make that happen. Or maybe it's a more high level. I want a paddleboard, and you don't care where it is,
Mm-hmm.
Um, maybe it's in California. You're like, I want to paddleboard on the ocean. We can make
Mm-hmm.
that happen. You want to surf. I have connections with people. I'm not going to teach you how to surf. I'm not good enough of a surfer to teach someone, but I know
Right.
someone who can teach you. It's whatever you want to do. And the hiking, I think hiking is great, because so many unexpected things happen, and you really get to experience nature. And even if you go on the same trail, there's always something new to see, something new to experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, I like that rhythm of walking. And if you have a walking stick, just kind of like, it makes a little bit drum beat, and you make your own music to it. Much more preferable than hearing Katy Perry on someone's Bluetooth speaker hiking through
Yeah.
a
Which
forest.
happens. Which happens. Yeah. Oh my. Yeah. Uh, so, uh, what do you see as far as the future goes? Maybe this year or next year. Any kind of evolution in your practice?
I plan on 5 years, to
Yeah.
still continue doing it here, and maybe you'll go more, maybe you'll go less.
Right.
I'd like to see where this travel adventure thing goes, see if it's something that people are interested in doing.
Yeah.
um, I would like to go out of the country and start exploring more. I mean, even though I've been out of the country, it hasn't been for, oh, I don't know, maybe like 7 years. So
Oh
maybe
yeah.
the time is to do that. And like I said, it's kind of like that, living with intention versus a goal. If I have a goal and that doesn't happen, because I've done that in the past many times in my life, and then you feel defeat, or you feel disappointed, or you feel failure. But as long as I can continue to be in nature, and
Yeah.
and somehow live my life that I am in connection with nature, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
That's my intention, and that's just kind of what directs me. I want it to remain fun. There were some opportunities to make Aqua Om bigger.
Hmm.
I don't want it to be franchise. I don't want to have 50 million employees. I partner with other teachers. I have people who help me on the water when I have big events, but it's nice and it's manageable and it's genuine. And I
Yeah.
want to keep it that way. Because I
Hmm.
want it to be fun. I worked in corporate America. There was a lot of not fun things that happened for the first, almost
Yeah.
20 years of my life. So,
It's a big switch.
yeah,
Um, do you so kind of keep it like in a boutique style business where it's very free form, whatever you need to have happen, you can make happen with it without it becoming too much of an obligation and taking away from your ability to have those opportunities to do new things.
I don't want to be a slave to it. I
Right.
don't want it to feel like work. I still get excited for events. I have a hike and yoga coming up this Saturday, and
Oh.
it's been like the kickoff event for the past 4 years for my business. And I just partner with the local parks department and a ranger that I absolutely love, Kathy Grimm, one of the neatest people in the entire world. And she leads a hike through Antietam Lake. And we stop at this one little pond that's in the orchard.
Hmm.
And we do a real easy, gentle, more meditation with some stretches, I will say, than calling it your yoga practice. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited for it. And I want to wake up excited for work. I want to wake up excited to see people because they're excited to see me.
Right.
It's not lost on me how fortunate I am, someone who maybe has another job like working in a dentist office. Like no one's
Yeah.
like, yay, I'm super jazzed. I get to come to the dentist. Like people are scared and they're
Yeah.
nervous or sad or whatever. But no one comes to the lake and is like, well, I guess I'll freaking paddleboard today. Like they're excited. So
Yeah.
I have to also be excited about it. I would be doing them an injustice if I wasn't. So as long as it's fun, as long as I can continue providing a good experience, in my to the best of my capability, then I'll continue doing it. And I'm open to see where it grows.
Yeah. Yeah. And who knows, right? Who knows what can happen?
No one knows. What's the saying? You plan and God laughs. So,
Yeah. Right. Basically.
just kind of
Yes.
staying fluid and I'll just stick with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you going to be doing any kind of internet oriented events or yoga online?
Well, you brought up the meditation, and I
Yeah.
do love the ability to connect. And I've had friends like you, and I have had a friend in Georgia who was like, I wish you would do this. Like, I want to take your classes. And I did teach on Zoom when COVID first started. It gives me so much anxiety. And the reason why is exactly what happened to us right now, getting
Yeah.
disconnected.
Right.
You
Right. The
know,
signals.
in person is always better, yes, but I would feel connected with people when I would do it. But there's just this nervousness to me of like, well, I can't control it, and if the signal bloops out, then what do I do? And how do I tell them I'm sorry? And I just can't. Like, I don't know. Maybe if there's better, more dependable internet, I don't
Right.
I don't I don't know.
That's
I
the
would
trick.
love to do videos, but that's a lot of work. You need to know how
Yeah.
to edit and have an opening and a closing and everything that you're doing, which is just amazing to me. I know I sent you a text after I had ripped through a bunch of your episodes while I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
driving, but I'm just so impressed by it because I know the amount of work that goes into producing, what you're putting out there. And it's very time consuming. And I'm not
It is. Yeah.
fantastic, when it comes to like tech things. I'm not real
Hmm.
tech savvy. So it's just amazing to me. And I really am proud of you. And I
Thank
think
you.
it's so
Thank you.
cool.
Yeah. It took on a life of its own. I don't even know what's happening with it right now. I have no idea, but I'm continuing to do it, and really interesting guests and really interesting information, and that's been a lot of fun. And the ability to get the people that I know and love on the show, like yourself, and to explore the different facets of what you've got going on and how you're helping people. It's awesome. I just love it. I really do. I don't know how much longer it will last, but that's one of those things where you just got to go free form and see what you can do and when you can do it, you know?
However long you decide to do it, there has been some really fantastic episodes. I mean, I'm not just saying that because we are friends. I have genuinely enjoyed listening to the guests, which kind of made me nervous coming on because I'm like, God, I don't think I have anything inspiring to say.
No, no, plenty, plenty.
But like, I've really really learned a lot, and so much is out there that I didn't even know about,
Yeah.
and that's what I think is so neat is there it are all these different modalities of healing ourselves and living a more fulfilled life, or
Mm-hmm.
trying to reduce or eliminate pain in your life that you can do, and whether it is the Ayurveda, or
Mm-hmm.
it's the Kundalini, or it's getting out and paddleboarding, or there's so many things, and I just love that you're packaging it up in a format that is easy to listen to. And I think it's going to really encourage people to go out there and learn more about
Yeah.
something that has piqued their interest.
Yeah, that's the hope is that it's like kind of like getting a catered lunch and you have all these different options and you get to hear somebody that does the practice and you get to decide that maybe that's the calling. That's the thing that's calling me to what I need for my life. This thing that maybe they didn't know that they needed it. And I think that for me, I feel like blending yoga and meditation and activity all in one fell swoop. You do a really amazing thing for people, and they may not even really realize you're kind of, you know, getting them on a different level that they may not be aware that's even happening. But you're getting
Yeah,
them in a
in the
spiritual mind.
paddleboard in the paddleboarding lessons, I really try to pull mindfulness in it. So in addition to saying like here's how your paddle should be, or here's how your reach should be, I try to be like, okay, now inhale and exhale and inhale. And I'm trying to have them match their breath
Right.
with their movement, which, you kind of do in yoga to get that vinyasa, flow. So I pull it in that way, or the next couple of paddles, I want you to pay attention to your feet. Are you on more on the right foot, the left foot? Is it the balls or the heels? Are you more balanced? And just that, just paying attention to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we need to pay more attention to ourselves because we're so distracted by all the shiny lights and the scrolling it all the time. So really pulling it inward is automatically going to lower those cortisol levels,
Right.
and just kind of do a little self-love for yourself, and when people come out that really maybe haven't spent a lot of time in nature, or haven't spent a lot of time on the water, one of the first things they'll say is, wow, I didn't realize how much I needed this.
Yeah.
Or, my gosh, it's so peaceful out here. and
Right.
and when I get one of those two responses, I'm like, my work is done here. Like, to be able
Yeah.
to help someone find that gift. It's not my gift. I didn't create this, but to be the conduit to get them there,
Right.
it really feels good. It's very rewarding.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's got to be just amazing. And you starting this the end of May. That people haven't really been out. The weather is still kind of in that spring, backwards and forwards. They may have a warm weekend here and there, but they really haven't gotten out to do something active. This is going to be their launch for their, their summer activities.
Yeah, it's exciting. And we've got May, June, July, August, and then people will say, how long does it go? Depends on the weather.
Yeah.
Depends what's going to happen in September. Most people who paddleboard, unless you are someone who is real experienced with it, you're going to probably stop when it gets cold. There are
Yeah.
four season paddlers. I have paddled next to ice. I think it's a very cool experience, but that's not for everyone, you know?
Right.
Um, but there, are warm Octobers. Last year, the Berks County SUP group went out and had like a witches and warlocks paddle where they kind of
Mm,
dressed up in costumes. And I think they asked for like a $10 donation and gave it to PA Lake Management, who does a lot for our lakes, in
yeah.
this state. So, that's pretty cool to be still enjoying outside on the water in October. So,
Yeah, definitely.
we'll see how long it goes. I'll be out of here at the beginning of October, kind of heading
Hmm.
west for some more journeys and more paddle boarding and all of that. But
Hmm.
you know,
Do you have anything already set up for next year? Are you pre-booked that way for yourself as far as your winter goes?
I'm not pre-booked on anything. I have to really, get myself in gear and start advertising more for this travel adventure thing.
Hmm.
And I think that's going to kind of dictate where I'll be. So
Yeah,
let's say someone's like, I want to be whatever. I want to paddle Tahoe
right,
in October. So that tells me I'm going to be in Northern California in October. And then I got to, kind of shape something around that.
right,
So right
right.
now it's kind of a first come, first serve. You dictate my geography and we'll go from there. I really would like to have something up in Page, Arizona to
Mm,
bring people to Antelope Canyon.
yeah, yeah,
It's
definitely.
it's not an easy paddle. It definitely is somebody who is an experienced paddler. Because it's 2.5 miles just to get to the entrance of the slot canyon, 2.5 miles back, 5 miles. That's a lot of paddling for
Yeah,
someone
that's a
who's
lot
even
of paddling.
experienced.
Right.
And then it's colder weather, and you're paddling in Lake Powell
Hmm.
with the canyon walls,
Yeah.
very choppy, very ocean like. So
Okay.
it's not for the faint of heart, but I still want to do it because I think there's some people out there with that thirst for adventure who'd be like,
Right.
I'm down.
That sounds like an adventure. So choppy water, cliff walls,
Yeah.
canyon walls, right? Cold. And then hours of it, right?
Hours and hours. And
Oh
those
my.
canyon walls, man, they really play some games on you because it's the boats go ripping through. You're paddling
Hmm.
through an actual wake zone, so they don't
Right.
have to go slow. So
Hmm.
the boat creates its wake and then it, dissipates out, hits the canyon walls, and then comes back in. So it's
Yeah.
not like an ocean or even a lake in that sense where it goes out and keeps getting,
Yeah.
smaller and smaller and smaller, kind of like boomerangs back at you, like, oh,
Hmm.
you
And here it is
thought you
again.
avoided me, here I am.
Oh my. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that could be a little treacherous. It's definitely a life jacket, life preserver on, right?
Yeah, so I wear a PFD belt.
Hmm.
So, kind of the life jacket is all wrapped up in what looks like a really thin, super stylish fanny pack. And there's a rip cord on the bottom. So if
Oh,
I would fall, it, inflates and I can just pop that over my head. I myself do not like paddling wearing a life jacket.
right.
Have I done it in certain conditions? Yes, I have.
Hmm.
When I need to. I don't love it. It's just not great for me. But I still think you need to have some personal flotation device out with you, depending on the state. They have certain regulations of what you need to have on your board, a whistle, a life
Hmm.
jacket. Certain times during the months, you have to wear them. In
Right.
Pennsylvania, you have to be wearing some sort of PFD from, I think it's November 1st and through April 30th.
Hmm.
So my little belt thing counts as a PFD.
Okay. Perfect. That's your concession.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And as far as if somebody wanted to come out to visit to do some paddle boarding, you have an events calendar where they can see the upcoming events that you have going on, and maybe they can plan a trip for a full moon float or something like that.
Thanks for asking. So yes, obviously go on Facebook. You can go on the events tab and you will see all the special events and classes that we have. But you can go to my website, which is AO Paddle, because believe it or not, Aqua Om Paddle was taken
Oh, oh, really?
from some company. I think it was in like Thailand. I'm like, I came up with
Really?
it, you know. But so yeah, I'm aopaddle.com, and you know, all the classes that I offer are there. There's a much bigger description, so it kind of gives you a sneak peek as to what you're getting into, and then you can see the schedule from there. You can book it from there. Another thing that I do is if you want to buy a board, I'm a firm believer in you don't just buy a board because it looks cool or your neighbor has it or you like the color. You should be on that board and you should try it before you buy
Mm,
it.
mm-hmm.
You
Right.
wouldn't go out and buy a car before you test drove it. You wouldn't buy a house based on a picture. Paddleboard is an investment. In a
Yeah.
decent paddleboard's probably going to run you no less than $800 and up. So you want to
Right.
make sure you like the board that you're on. So I offer free demos. If you said to me you were interested, we kind of talk about what's your transportation situation, what type of paddler on are you, what type of water are you going to be going on, what is your storage situation, and then
Mm-hmm.
I'd make some recommendations and say, here you go, here's 4 or 5 boards, lay them out in the grass and just let you go to town trying them and seeing what you think.
Yeah.
Usually I can pick the board. I've
Hmm.
only one person they did not pick the board that I thought they should have. you know but I
Yeah.
don't ever tell people. They'll say, what do you think? And I'm like, well, you tell me.
Right.
And I don't ever tell them ahead of time.
Yeah. So you offer sales of the boards as well, and the rental, of course. So somebody could fly in, they could take a class.
Yep,
They'd be able to rent the board from you. What is the rental going for this year?
$30 an hour.
$30 an hour. Okay.
So $30 an hour, we give you all the equipment. I even give a little on land demo. So I show you how to hold your paddle, how to measure your paddle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as long as it's not too crazy, I'll even come out in the water with you for about 3 to 5 minutes, show you how to stand up, and then let you have that free time. You
Right.
know, um, if it's windy and you should be wearing a leash, I have leashes. I will put it on you. And we sell other gear too, paddles. When people buy the inflatable little setup that comes with a paddle, the pump, all of that, those
Yeah.
paddles are just kind of starter paddles. They're very heavy. Most of the
Hmm.
time, they're aluminum. Um, they're usually 3-part paddles, which tend to have a lot of play in them. So as you get to be a better paddler, that is like bothersome.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I will tell people, don't go and change your board, just upgrade your paddle,
Hmm.
and it makes a world of difference. So we have those, and the PFDs that we were talking about, the little belt thing, I sell those as well, leashes, rail tape, um,
Hmm.
board bags, kind
Yeah,
of
the
all
whole
that
gamut.
stuff, fins.
Yeah. Right. Right. Every little bit that you would need.
Yeah.
Um, and just so everybody knows, you're mainly centered in the Reading area, that Blue Marsh Lake.
Blue Marsh Lake, it's my home lake. When I started out, I did try to do some little trips here and trips there to different, Marsh Creek, Gifford Pinchot, Leaser Lake. But I've gotten so busy that it doesn't really make sense for me to be away from my home lake, which is 10 minutes from my house,
Yeah, that
when I
helps.
have back to back people, versus traveling an hour to a really cool lake, which I still would love to do. It's just, I have a very short season. So it's kind of, I'm putting a year's worth of work into
Right.
3.5 months.
Yeah. Yeah. It's quite a feat.
Yeah, so
Quite a
Blue
feat.
Marsh Lake, or if people, there is a very real fear of water. Some people are scared of oceans, some people are scared of lakes.
Yeah.
They want to be able to see the bottom of it. So that's why the partnership with Antietam Pool is fantastic, because you don't have to be a member there. You can
Hmm.
just come and take the class. It's a beautiful pool. a really nice facility. And, that comfort level is there for some people that it's not too deep
Yeah, it's you can see the bottom, like you said. That
and
for
you
a
can
lot of
see the
people,
bottom.
that's yeah, it's on the water, but you're getting all that benefit. But it's not this unknown, Blue Marsh. Yeah, there used to be a town underneath Blue Marsh. It was one of those dammed up towns. They took all the buildings out, but
And
yeah.
what's neat, and I'm sure you know this, you can go there when they do the drawdown of the
Mm.
water at the beginning of winter, or you can still catch in the beginning of spring before the pool level is up, and you can see some old parts
Hmm.
of the town that remain. You can see some bridges.
Oh wow.
Sometimes you can find some foundations. There's a little cove that I like to go to that, depending on the water level, you can see steps that used to go up
Oh
to a
my.
house,
Wow.
which I think is
That's
really
cool.
cool.
Yeah, yeah, that's neat. No, I don't think. You mean you're on the water, so that you're getting to see a lot more of that lake than I ever got to see. Um, but I don't know if I was ever there for the drawdown that I was looking around for stuff. But it's definitely neat. A lot of roads just going right into the water.
Yep.
Very neat. Yeah. It's very neat little it's a pretty big lake too. It takes up a lot of room. It's spread out. Um,
I feel fortunate that that is here because, looking at other areas, sometimes people will have to drive three
yeah.
hours, 4 hours to have a place to recreate like that. So to be able to have, number one, the water, which I'm thankful for because was able to start this really cool business,
Mhm.
but all the hiking trails, and they have spent so much time and energy into making new biking trails at Blue
No.
Marsh, which
Oh,
are
okay.
amazing. And have I just discovered this yesterday, have changed some aspects of the lake. So um,
Hmm.
over towards, and you'll know, like Peacock Road and where the Spring Creek parking is just a road parking.
Yeah.
They've done a lot of regrading to put all of these mountain biking trails in. And I think
Wow.
what has happened is that regrading that they have done has kind of changed where the runoff from heavy rain goes.
Oh.
So
Hmm.
I went back in this part of the lake that I have been back in many, many times, and I know where it ends. Like, you can't go any further. It's just, well, now it just went back for like another, I don't know, 40 feet. And I'm like, wow, you've never, and it's a beautiful, clear stream. And they've put
Hmm.
in a bridge to kind of go across the creek. And it was
Wow.
fantastic. So even the lake's kind of changing and evolving, which is exciting to see.
Yeah. Yeah. I in the 90s, I remember that the rating for the mountain biking there was like top 10 on the East Coast. So it was really, really high for, I guess, difficulty. It was very difficult. Yeah. Top 10 difficult. And it's because it is very, you're going, up and down and up and down. And some areas you're crossing a muddy track
Yep.
where the lake has come in. And I tried to do it. I definitely had a lot of trouble going on a bike on that trail. But
I was gonna say, are you a mountain biker? Because I'm definitely not.
uh, I think I wanted to be, and I just didn't do it enough. Not enough dedication. But I definitely am more of a hybrid biker. A pseudo off road. A dirt path is good, but
Right.
not like jutting rocks and stairs that you got to go down. It's very. I think I got injured trying to do Blue Marsh.
It's impressive to watch, and walking the bike trails. I'm like,
Right.
wow, I'm struggling like on 2 feet here. I can't
Yeah.
imagine, paddling up this or flying down this.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
more like a beach cruiser down the San Diego boardwalk kind of
Right.
biker. Nice and flat.
Oh yeah. Well, that's really nice too. Yeah. I'm at that level now. Yeah. Just a nice cruise on the beach. Absolutely. Well, it was really good having you here today.
Thank you for having me. I am so excited to be part of your podcast because, like I
Yeah,
said, I've been enjoying it. So it's neat to now be on the other side of it.
I'm very thankful for your encouragement, and uh, I've always been really impressed with your calling in life and your drive to make it succeed, which I don't think that you're, I mean, obviously you're doing it to succeed, but I don't think you're doing much in the ways that there's a huge attempt. You're just doing what you're passionate about and it's being successful for you. And I find that just great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think it's just living authentically, trying to find that balance of, I do have a business background, so I know what you're supposed to do.
Right.
But sometimes what you're supposed to do just isn't for me. So I don't do it if it doesn't feel right, if it doesn't feel honest, if it doesn't feel good. And that has led me to keep doing this, going on 6 years. So I'm just going to stick with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I
thank you
mean,
I
it
appreciate your
works.
kind words.
Yeah. No, no, it works. It's great. I mean, and I encourage everybody to check out your Facebook. And I believe you have the Instagram going too for the adventures and the announcements. Aqua Om will be potentially going to new states, which is just amazing. That would be really
Hitting the
cool if that
road.
manifests. Yeah. Yeah, hitting the road. Yeah, exactly. The continuing adventures. And then your website, aopaddle.com.
Correct.
And we'll have that in the description for you. And, help spread what you're doing, which is great stuff.
Get out, get active, get fluid.
There it is. Yeah, that's the best. Well, thank you again for being here, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you, Nick.